Greetings. I got the idea for today's video while doing the 15-minute readings at the psychic fair that I mentioned that I attended. I did. It's taken me a little while to go over in my head what exactly happened because it was a very busy day. I did have 27 back-to-back 15-minute readings that day. No breaks. It was really intense, and I really enjoyed it. But I wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of what I set out to do for the readings, and then I'll tell you what I happened upon that I thought was really a good point I wanted to make with you today for this video. I started out doing, basically, since we had 15 minutes, I started out doing what I call the 5-card cross. You're familiar with. This is my folder that I do for my my Celtic cross. This is actually for my Celtic cross, the Norman combo. I think I've showed this to you before. I always put them on folders so I don't forget my layout. But it's just basically this part I want to tell you. If you ignore this card, but as you can see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the way I do it in the country cross. And when I was doing, I usually do this configuration of a cross. And when I do this abbreviated reading, I usually go. This is the center being the issue, the querent, what is going on with the querent right now, what the issues are, what the energies are focusing on right now. And then I do this cross configuration is what I'm trying to show you. And I usually, when I deal them out, I deal them in order of, this is center is 1, and then I usually go up above, as above, so below, and I say behind and in front. That's who's moving the camera? Louie? Huh. If you're going to move my camera, you got to leave. Of course, it's a hot day, and the dogs are under the table. But anyway, I just wanted to show you that. I was starting out with that kind of a configuration, and which is giving me a lot of information in the beginning. It tells you that, and it tells you when I say above and below, as above, so below, that can mean any number of things. It's just in my head as I'm dealing them out, depending on the focus of the reading. But it could be a present influence up above, or it could be somebody, a person who's influencing maybe your higher self. It could be something that you're physically aware of. It could be, depending. And underneath would be underlying issues or things you're not aware of, or things you fear, your hopes, your aspirations, and your fears, depending on the different, what the focus of the reading is. But I usually do those so I can go in line down the 3 cards that run in the center. They relate in somehow. Whatever the subject of the cards above and below will relate. So I can read these 3, tie them together in with the issue. And then I can also go behind and in front, and they can read across. They can read tie together. Like, we're behind, here we are now, here we're going in the future, past, present, future kind of thing. Okay, that's where I begin all the readings. And then I would put out, depending again on the person, if the person had a particular question or not, I would maybe put out some cards from the elements, maybe the influences from the elements or whatever, or I might, something like that. There's usually some additional cards I add. I might do some clarification cards on the past. If the past card was really an issue, we might want to do I might add cards over there, or I might add cards, Anyway, what I'm trying to say is we had 15 minutes to do the reading. And when we're getting close to the end, particularly some of these readings got pretty intense, as they do. People get very emotional when you read their cards. And some people were just, I think some people were, the frustration of only doing 15 minutes, especially when we were getting into a subject that they were really caring about, they really wanted the bottom line. Can you give me a bottom line? This is where today's subject comes in. So I started to pull 2 cards at the end part of the reading. A do and don't do. Or don't do and do. I guess I did don't do and do. Don't do and do this. Don't do this, do this. Just bottom line. And how those cards tied into the reading. This is where the subject for today's video comes from. Because a lot of the people that I read for have had their cards read enough in the past. They're kind of familiar with the cards. Or they have maybe readers themselves to whatever extent. And these people very, they react to certain cards they see. Here's a good one. They react to, what is this? The Tower. When people see the Tower, they freak out. They freak out because it's a scary card. It's a very scary card. Okay, who wouldn't freak out at that? This is something that's, life altering. It's some kind of a change coming out of the blue. You didn't have any forewarning for it. Usually, it just came, and it changed something drastically about your life. It's a drastic change. It's a big change. It's major arcana, big change in your life. So that's really scary. But what I want to say to you, it depends on where in the reading this card falls, where in that spread. We're looking at this card, a Celtic cross. A normal Celtic cross for me has 10 or 11 cards. It makes a big difference where this card falls. If this card falls in the past, what are you telling me? You're not telling me anything new. This has already happened. And now you're in this stage where you're recovering from this. You're moving beyond this, right? That's not a big deal. If this card falls in a position of something that you fear, if this is something that you fear, if you're fearing change, well, that's a whole other issue, isn't it? Because we all know things never stay the same. Things are always in the process of changing. If you're fearing a big change, what is the basis of your fear? What is what is your plan if this happens? What is your plan? How are you going to deal with that? Okay. So it's really important. So when we ask the question today, does position matter? Absolutely. Absolutely, position matters in a spread. Just like other readers that are on here on YouTube, I do read often, pull, particularly small spreads like 3 cards that I just randomly pull without assigning any category to them. And I've shown you that before. I've shown you it. Sometimes I'll assign categories like past, present, future, or here's the issue, and here's things that hurt the issue, or things that help the issue, or do this, don't do that, kind of thing, or past, present. Did I say past, present, future? I think I already did. But I sometimes do those things. But sometimes I just randomly pull 3 cards and see how their energies play together with each other to get a reading from that. And I do that often. But if somebody has a question, or somebody comes to me for a reading, even in these very short 15-minute readings, I really do mostly assign meanings to each position in my spread, because I need to really be able to zero in on the information the cards are trying to give me. And they're answering questions. What was in the past that you need to remember, or that you're still dragging along with you? The Tower. That answers some questions right away. The person who I'm reading for, they're going to be able to identify that. Something that they still have very much in their mind. What is it you're afraid of down here in this lower position? What is this underlying issue that's causing you all this worry? The Tower. I'm afraid something's going to come and change my happiness. I'm afraid that something's going to come along and do away with all the work that I've done so far. It's going to be for nothing. Okay. What if this is in the uppermost position, up above, as above? Is this a karma card? Is this a card about karma? Payback. Is it? If you believe in karma, some people do. Is this a card in the future? Is this a card in the future? That's really important, because if this is a card in the future, and in my readings, it's the near future. It's not the faraway future, the future of, the end of your life. This is just, next week, next month, whatever, this summer. It's not too far away. This is a change coming. You can embrace yourself for some kind of change. It's going to be a life-altering change. What's it about? We have other clues in this reading that we can look to see what it's going to be about. But we probably think it's going to come. But it's only going to come if the energies remain the same that are in play right now. We have free will. We talk about that all the time, and we have to believe that and assure the clairants that if something like this is in their near future, they can maybe avoid it happening. Do they want to maybe avoid it happening? That's a whole other question. Maybe knowing that it's happening, knowing you prepare for it, you're prepared, and you can start planning for the future that comes after that, the not so immediate future. Okay? The cards that come after that we might lay down in a spread, maybe in a Celtic cross, what's coming up on the side, right? Some of those cards. Ultimate outcome in a Celtic cross. We have this. I don't know if you can see this. I apologize if you can't, but you know where my hand is at least. We have this card here, representing the immediate future, right? This is along the path. And mine, I call it along the path. It's something that's going to happen pretty soon. Okay, here's today, and here's along the path. And then up here, possible outcome is up here. Don't pay attention to this. This is my Lenormand gumbo. But so I'm going to go way up to my very final card before I get to the final outcome of this subject. That's of this subject. Not the final outcome, again, of your life. The final outcome of this subject. Okay? So there's a lot of things that we can do. This is not so desperately scary. Okay? Okay? Sometimes, what about position? What other cards? Some of these are pretty, Ten of Swords. Again, it depends on where it is in the spread. If this is something that has already happened to you, if you've already had this, painful situation end, if this is in the past, we need to realize it's in the past. It's done. It's done. This is an all new day. This spread has nothing to do with it other than you're dragging that along with you. Or the only reason it's in this spread is because what did you learn? Did you not learn anything from this that you can apply to this? Maybe it can apply. Okay? But again, if this is in the future, tomorrow's another day. The sunrise in the background, it doesn't really show us on here, but the sunrise in the background tells us it's another day. This is the end of a painful situation. The end of it. Right? So if this comes up in your immediate future, whatever's going through your problem right now is coming to an end. So that should be good news. It really should be good news. Okay? If it's a painful situation and it's coming to an end, that should be something you want to hear. Okay? The same thing applies. The Three of Swords, same thing applies. So these are pretty straightforward cards. Sometimes it's not so straightforward. What if we get a card like this? What is this? How is this going to change depending on where it is in your layout? The Three of Pentacles is all about being valued for your achievements. Okay, so if this is coming in your near future, that's probably very good news, right? Or if it's about if it's a center card, what is this card about? And this card has all these other negative things, or things that are, or disappointments, or things, things that are, we have things where blindfolded people, or or whatever around them. This is an issue then about you wanting to become valued for your achievements, but you're not actually, that's not really happening right now if it's in your center card. See, it very much depends on what cards are around it, what the cards are that are playing off of the card. Remember, I've told you this in the past, cards are not read as an individual cards. They're read together in one story with all of the chapters, or all of the characters playing together in one story. What the outcome of the story is going to be. Every card has equal footing. No card in your spread is worth more than the other cards. They don't carry more weight. They all carry weight, equal weight. Okay? So it depends what this is about. If this is down below, if it's something that's bothering you in this, the cross down below the center card, it could mean that maybe you don't feel that you're being valued. Maybe that's the whole problem. You just don't feel like doing the job, because if you're not going to get credit for it, why should you do it? You see, these all play a really important part. Six of Cups, same way. Six of Cups can mean a lot of things. It's usually a very happy card. It has to do with, it might be nostalgia, it might be about your inner child, or seeing the magic, okay? But what if it's in a negative position? What if this comes in a negative position? And I don't mean negative, but what if this indicates with the rest of these cards that there's an issue? Maybe it means that you're spending too much time in the past, depending on where it is in the spread. Maybe it means that you need to get in touch with your intuition, you're in touch with your inner child. Or maybe it means that you are seeing too many things. You're seeing the world through rose-colored glasses, okay? All of these things about position, when I say about positions, I'm talking about, of course, I'm talking about upright cards if you read reversals. But if you read reversals, even the same applies where they are in the spread. But remember, a reversal is not necessarily a negative. It's not a negative. There's different ways of reading them, but they're not usually happy childhood, unhappy childhood. That's not the way they're read. Okay, that's a little too simplistic. So right now we're just dealing with the upright cards, and we're saying very much where in the position the card lies. We're going to talk a lot more about this in the future, because I'm going to drill this into your head. I think it's really important. I think it's really important. And I like to remind myself of that too. And I like to remind myself, and I need to remind myself that other people need to be reassured where the card is in the position, in what position the card is on their reading, what it's going to really, how it's going to really influence them. Okay? Maybe it's not necessarily a bad thing. Now, what I started to do then, as I said, I got to the end. I sort of deviated there, but I got to the end of these readings, and at the end I would say, don't do this, do this. Like for the last two things to think about before they go. And I'd flip up a don't do this, and I'd flip up a do this. And this is in line with all of the we've already touched upon on the reading. And for a lot of times, again, some cards are easy to read that way. Sometimes that makes it difficult. Okay? For instance, here we all know the Eight of Swords. I'm just going to go through a bunch of cards, and this is for food for thought. This is not like necessarily, I'm giving very, very abbreviated meaning to each of these cards just to make the point. That's not, there's a lot more meaning to these cards. We all know that. So this is just to make my point. Okay. But what happens if you get this card in, well, if you get it in the do this card, it's pretty, it's pretty, because when we say the Eight of Swords, excuse me, that fear of being trapped, the fear of being trapped, we're not, don't do this. We don't want to trap yourself with your own thought. So if this is in the don't do this position, it's pretty self-explanatory. Don't do this. Don't close your eyes to your problems and be afraid to move. Don't let your fear paralyze you. That's pretty obvious. But what if this is in the do this position? Do this? Do let my thoughts paralyze me? Do this? No, that's not what that would mean. How would we read that? Maybe we want to read, we want you to look inside yourself. Instead of looking outside yourself, maybe inside yourself. So maybe we're saying trust your intuition. Trust your intuition. Okay? Do this. Stop. Don't be sidetracked about what's going on around you. Look inside yourself. Close your eyes to what's going on around yourself. All the outside influences. Close your eyes. And trust your intuition. It's a possibility, isn't it? How about the Death card? How about the Death card? I think we've done pretty good in convincing people the Death card is really a positive card. The Death card is my card this year for my transformation, for my evolution. I'm evolving this year as a person. Something I was last year, I'm becoming something new this year. That's my card for the year. I think we all know this is something coming to an end. Everything comes to an end. But there's something that's going to be beginning anew. And I think we've convinced everything that that thing that's getting anew is a good thing. Okay? So if I say, do this in the positive thing, we can sort of understand that now. I mean, where in the past it would be a negative feeling. If we give this, and I say do this, and you get death, it means it's time to stop at whatever is in the past and to evolve into something new, to change, to allow the change to happen. Give in to that change, right? But what if I say, don't do this? Why would I ever say don't do this? Well, it's not a negative. It's not going to say don't change at all, because this is a change card. It's a very strong card. And if it wasn't about change, the Death card wouldn't have come up. But how could this be a don't do this? Well, I might read it. It's a suggestion as, if we're going to use the analogy of a caterpillar who builds a cocoon and transforms into a butterfly, which that's what I did in my book. I have butterflies all over my bullet journal where I follow up on my evolving this year. That caterpillar, the key here is spends time in the cocoon. Doesn't happen overnight. That change does not happen overnight. So maybe this is just slowing down the change, trying to ride it out a little more. Don't make up your mind too fast about what you're becoming. Just be patient. Ride it out and see what happens. Something's going to happen. Change is going to happen. But don't be in a hurry to call it, right? That's one possibility. Okay? We have the Nine of Swords. Obviously a bad card. Oh, isn't it? Not necessarily. If I say don't do this, well, we're not going to do this. We're not going to just dwell on our nightmares and our fears and be afraid to look. And we say to people, open up your eyes and get a perspective. This is what we're always telling people. But also, sometimes, what if I said, do this? Do this. Why would I say to you, do this? If this comes up when we ask for do this, what shall I do? What shall the querent do? This is what the querent needs to do. Maybe it is time to look and try to figure out the root cause. Maybe that dream was trying to really tell you something. What is causing me to have these dreams night after night after night about X, about this particular subject? Maybe it's not just, oh, open your eyes and forget about it. It's a dream. Look at the daylight. Look at what's around you that's reality. Maybe it's time to look at the root cause. What is causing that? Again, sort of a familiar sight when we had the last one, when we had the Eight of Swords, where we said, look for your intuition. Here we might want to say, look at the root cause. Okay? How about this? Five of Wands. Five of Wands. This is a competition. This is not a big deal. A healthy competition is not a good, bad thing. It's practice. It's good practice. So if we say, time to do that, it could be the difference between it's time to do this, time to, you're going to have some competition with some people. Don't worry about it, but that's just the way life is. It'll let you hone your skills. So this may be a good thing. But sometimes we want to say to somebody, oh, no, instead of that, we don't want to do this. Instead of when I say don't do this, it might be, maybe it's not time to compete against each other. Maybe it's time for you to pull together. Try to work together as a team. That's so obvious, right? That's a really obvious one. Difference. How about a Five of Pentacles? Don't do this, do this. What's the difference? Depending on what position it's in. Well, if it is this and you're having trouble, we would say do this. You're having all of the kinds of trouble. We tell you to look up out of your problem and look around you. There's help there for you. There's help waiting for you. But what if I say don't do this? Don't do this. What if the card says don't do this? Maybe it's saying to look again at what you can do for yourself. Don't be in such a hurry to look to others to help you with your problem. See what you can do for yourself, because sometimes seeing what you can do for yourself will keep these things from happening again. Okay? Eight of Cups, pretty simple, straightforward. Don't do this, do this. Don't do this or do this. Maybe do this, it will come do first. Do this, time to walk away. It's time to walk away. You have something in front of you. You have done all you can for what you have with what you have. It's time to cast them aside and go somewhere else and start fresh. Okay? But again, don't do this. Don't do this. Could mean look again at what you have. Why be so quick to just, cast off all of the things, everything you have, and go for something new? Maybe you can reuse something you've already had. Maybe you can redefine something you've already had. Maybe you want to carry something you've had with you on your journey. Okay? Does that make sense? How about the Devil? Oh, the Devil, another one of these. We're not as good at convincing people the Devil's not good, because the Devil is it's a negative card, because it's telling us something is controlling us that we just are not in control of. This usually, in my world, it usually speaks of some kind of an addiction, or like maybe you have some kind of a physical addiction, like a chemical addiction to alcohol or to drugs or something. Maybe you have an addiction to negative behavior. Maybe you have an addiction to abusive relationships. That's sad, but it's very true. A lot of people do. It's so when we say don't do this, we want to say we want to free you from whatever your addictions are. We want you to be free. We want you to get out of those chains that are binding you to that devil, that are binding you to the devil. Okay. But sometimes we will say, do this. What do we mean by do this? How could this be a do this card? Now remember, this is a simple do this, don't do this reading. Very simple. We're not going into detail. Don't try to go into detail. If you try to go into detail, you need a lot more cards. And in my case, the cards were already on the table from the reading. And this would come up in the do this. I would say to my querent, are you out of control? Do you need some grounding? Do you need to tether yourself in order to maintain your balance instead of flopping wildly on your own? Sometimes you do. Sometimes you need to hold on to something, to stabilize your something for a purpose, for a time. I'm not a proponent of irresponsible drinking, but I am a big proponent of sometimes you need a stiff drink. Nothing wrong with taking that stiff drink when you need it. Okay? Sometimes you do have to hold on to somebody. There's a big difference between holding on and depending on somebody or something and becoming dependent on somebody or something. And that's the difference in the do this, don't do this situation. Yeah. So the bad ones, or the typically bad cards, are kind of self-explanatory, but sometimes you get cards. This was the problem. What if you get these fantastic cards? Like, there could be really good cards, and you think, oh, how could those be? How could you say don't do this? Don't do this. I'm going to answer that in just a second. I have to take a drink of my tea. It's really hot today. Thank you. And while I'm stopped, I want to say we've had very, very cool spring, almost cold. And today and yesterday, a couple of days, it's been like close to 100 degrees. I mean, it's really high in the 90s for some reason. And so the fans are on, and the windows are open, the fans are on. And I want to say, I've told you before, I have no air conditioning. So if you're watching me in the summer, you're going to hear fans. Ceiling fan right now. Later on, you're going to be hearing some floor fans on in addition. I hear from somebody every time that they wish my fans weren't making so much noise. Well, I do too, but not enough to turn them off. Not going to happen. So if the fans bother you, maybe you might need to come back in November when the fans go off. Because once they come on, they're usually on pretty much for the summer. And I apologize. I try my best to keep them as quiet as I can, but I can't take the heat. No air conditioning here. Okay, that's that. That's that. Okay, what about the cards? We're back to saying I'm trying to make this as short as I can, but what about the cards that are positive cards? How do we read positive cards as they don't do? Like easy here, we have cards like we have the Four of Wands, maybe the Three of Cups, the Six of Wands. How do we read these as don't do? Well, they're about celebration in some form or another, aren't they? And maybe it just means it's not time to celebrate. Don't, don't rush into anything. You're going to have a celebration, but right now is not the time. Which a lot of people do that. They're, oh, yippee, we did it. Well, maybe we didn't quite do it. We're getting there, but we didn't quite do it. So don't be in a hurry for celebration. The same with something like the sun, right? Not yet time. Not yet time. How about something like the family? I mean, the Ten of Cups, which this is a beautiful another celebration, but this is all about celebrating with the family, right? And maybe this is sort of easier one for me if I want to say don't do this. It's not that we don't ever want to celebrate the family. We absolutely do, of course. But I have known people in the past who put so much effort into their family that they push everybody away. Everything is about, they tie up every pretty much weekend with their family and every holiday with their family and every evening with their family, and they go to see every movie that comes out with their family. Everything they do is with the family, and then they wonder why they don't have any friends because they're not giving their friends any time. They're not giving their friends any time. So sometimes this can be pretty evidently a negative card. You see in that situation? Could mean something like that. What about something that's about balance? We have a couple that are about balance. This is in the minor arcana. The Two of Pentacles is simple. We like to keep a balance of things. But sometimes, instead of trying to juggle things and work hard at balancing, sometimes we just have to put something down and concentrate on the one thing. This is a good one for women. Women have to all the time juggle their home, their family life, and their work life all the time. And we juggle and we get really good at juggling, but there's a time when work has to suffer because the family needs me right now. Or also sometimes, every now and then, there's an emergency at work and the family's just going to have to understand. We're going to have to make a sacrifice right now because it's time for me to concentrate on my work just for right now. So this is pretty evident. How about in the minor and the major arcana with the Chariot? Okay. It's a very strong force. It's all about moving forward. It's time to move forward. You have the skill. You have the determination. It looks like you have everything you need. Is it time to move forward? And I say don't do it. The card came up and said don't do it. What does that mean? Well, we know that the Chariot has to be in balance. It has to be in balance to move forward. And if we're going to say don't do it, then we need to check our balance again. Check to see what is not in balance. What is not ready to go. Something is not ready for you to move forward. That would be a reason for this card to come up in the don't do. You're going to do it eventually, but right now we're not going to do it. Okay? The Strength card. Oh, you can do it. Honey, you can do it. You got the inner skill. You have the inner strength. That's what I'm trying to say. You have the inner strength. This maiden has the inner strength to subdue a vicious beast. Right? She might have the strength, but does she have the skill? But does she have the skill? Oh, I feel like I could fly. It's a lot different than really being able to fly. Right? So sometimes, if this comes up and they don't do, it might be reminding me, yes, you have the strength. Yes, you have the courage. Yes, you have the willpower. Yes, you have all of these things that are necessary for you to succeed. But have you taken adequate time to hone your skills to be sure that you will be successful, that you'll be able to hold your place in that area of success? Okay? Timing is everything. Okay, speaking of timing, how about this? This is sort of a, this is about 8 of Wands. What do we say about the 8 of Wands? It's a movement. There's a movement forward. It's time to move forward in the Wildwood Tarot, I believe, or the Celtic. Maybe it is the Druid craft that I've been reading. It talks about having to have the skill, develop your skill, and then there's that person throwing spear after spear after spear in the same exact place because they've developed that skill. Okay? If this is in the don't move forward, not time to throw these one. It's saying slow down a little bit. Are you really on your target? Are you on target? Do you know what your target is? Again, are you ready to do that? Are you ready to make that move? The Six of Pentacles, lovely card. Sharing with other people what you have, people that need it. Being charitable, that's wonderful. Yes, I would say do this, but what if I say don't do that? That sounds terrible, doesn't it? It sounds terrible, but it's a reminder. Maybe right now, are you keeping what you need? Yes, it's important to share with people, but are you keeping what you need? Maybe right now, this is not the time to share. Maybe right now, you need to keep it for yourself. There's a reason you need to be cautious, be conservative in your sharing, because something's... Look at the rest of the cards in the reading. What is there? They're going to tell you. The answers are in the reading. The answers are in the reading. Okay? That's why we give positions. They're answering the questions that we're asking with the position. The Nine of Cards, the wish card. Oh, it's a fulfilled. My wish is fulfilled. I am getting what I want. Yay. What could be negative about this? What could I say about this? Don't do this. Don't be all happy about getting your wish. There's nothing wrong with not getting your wish or getting what you were trying to get. As long as you remember, and this is why this might be coming up in the don't do, that this is a temporary thing, that it's not something that's going to be fixed forever. Right now may be good. And I like the description. I've seen a couple places where they talk about the Nine of Cups. He's sitting on this card. He's sitting on a bench. But it's a wooden bench. And I know because we have wooden benches in our camp in the SCA, so we're always sitting on wooden benches. And boy, after a while, you get a little tired sitting on that bench. You need something soft to sit on, or you want to stand up and walk away because it's a little hard on your seat to sit on wood for a long, long time. So it's okay for now, but maybe you want to hold off a little bit to get a little better comfortable seat. Okay, so are we ready? Or did you really get what you want now? Are we ready? Again, are we ready? Is it time to celebrate? Or yes, maybe it's time to celebrate, but maybe we need to just keep it close to ourselves because it's not going to last forever. That could be. Okay, so that's that. And then I have just a few more because I want to say there's a few cards that are harder cards. Well, there's a lot more cards that may be harder, but I just want to say, how do you come? Some of them are black and white because it looks like some of the cards are regularly kind of positive cards put into maybe a negative spin, or maybe the other way around, which are pretty easy to read. But what about, there's some that may be a little more trickier to read. One would be, this card is tricky to read anyway for most people, the Seven of Swords. There's so many different things people say about this card. And this is one card from deck to deck. Really varies in meaning a lot of times. But I just want to say that if you're going to go by something like, let's just to make it simpler, one of the common Rider-Waite meanings for this is, that there's been some kind of deceit, or are you trying to deceive somebody? Are you trying to get away with something you shouldn't be trying to get away with? That kind of a question comes up with this card. But I would say, if I would say, don't do this, that's how I would answer this. Don't try to deceive people. Don't try to trick people. Don't try to get away with things that you really shouldn't be trying to get away with. Fess up, be honest about what you're doing. But if I say, do this, what could that possibly mean? Well, do this could possibly mean that sometimes it is necessary to be a little bit deceitful, a little bit more cunning, a little bit that you can't be so transparent sometimes in some of your actions. There's a reason. Not necessarily to hurt other people. We're not looking to hurt other people, but sometimes to protect ourselves, we need to be a little more, at least for the time being. Like, we could be a little more honest later, maybe. Come later. But for right now, I have to be really strategically deceptive. So in cards like this that are that hard to read, that you're not sure of, I would say look to the other cards. Take your clues from the other cards in the spread. We've already, and remember when I did this, do this, don't do this, with my Aquarians, we've already done probably 10 minutes or so of looking at the issue and what we can find out about that issue, looking at all aspects of that issue. Okay, so we had a pretty good idea of what the energies were telling us. This was just the final verdict, right? This is just like a little final verdict on that reading. Okay, they put it all in clarity. So, that made it clear. So, that's what I would say. But, timing is everything. The Four of Pentacles, again, same thing. It's about holding things close to you, or it's time to spend. Yes, it's time to spend, or yes, it's time to save. That's very simplistic. But it also is time to share what you have, or time to protect what is yours. You see the opposites? Those are opposites. So when we say do this, don't do this, if we look at it that way, it's pretty clear. The Magician, I just have two more. The Magician, I want to show you. The Magician is, okay, you have what it takes to move forward, and we got that, so that's a good one. If you want to receive your goals right now, that's a good do this. Go ahead. We usually think about that in this term. Time to go, time to do it, time to make your move. But sometimes, and that's really the trick, if we get to this and it says don't do this, we want to slow down and don't make that move yet. Even though you might think you have the tools that you can succeed, but we want to look and say, is this the right time right now? And also, is this what you really want? That's that check before you move on. That check, be the full before you take that step off the cliff. Are you sure where you're going? Right? Are you really sure of it? Sometimes we fool ourselves into thinking we want something that we really don't need. Yes, I could acquire it, but maybe that's not what I really need. So this is what she said. When this comes up in the don't do, in that situation, I would really say slow down, look at it again. Look at it again, where you're going. Okay? And simple, easy, they can be so simple as this. 10 of Wands. Sometimes you feel like you have to do it all yourself. But you have it, you can do it. Put your head down and carry it. Okay? Sometimes you do have to do it. Sometimes it's time to look around and ask for help. Don't try to do it all by yourself. Sometimes it's time, yes, put your head down and plow through, because there's a reason you need to do this for yourself. Look at the other cards. Look at the other cards in the reading to give yourself clues. So, what's the purpose? What's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is, if you have a question, and when you're looking at a spread, a tarot spread, and trying to pick one to do a reading for somebody, look carefully at the positions of the cards, what the cards say. What are the questions being asked of the cards? They should be something that is used to you in the reading, right? But they need to be there because they are the questions that you're getting the answers for. If I get cards, if I just put 10 cards down on the table, it pretty much can mean anything. But if I'm asking particularly, what am I afraid of? Who's there to help me? What do people think of me? What is in my past that's haunting me? What do I need to do to reach my goals, what I want, my higher self, or my higher self to, these questions are very important. And finally, do this, don't do that. please try this out. Take a little bit of time. Go through a deck. I think it's a real fun exercise to just go for a deck and go through the deck and find what would the answer be if you're trying to give yourself, answer the question, do this, don't do that, what that would be like for you. How would you answer it? I think that's a really good first step, and then we can later go on. We can later go on to, like for instance, this is really straightforward, but if it's the Ace of Swords, yeah, you got this idea, you got this great idea, this really great idea, right? You know, this is maybe the beginning of some cool, really cool thing. But maybe it also could mean, we looked at it last time we were talking, time to cut yourself away, time to free yourself, to go into a new direction. Don't do this, time not to go. Time to stay, just stay a little longer. Put this off a little bit. Okay, go through every card in the deck like that, just to try and see how would you answer the questions. Do this, don't do that. And then that's going to help you so much by looking at cards with different view, different eyes, when you get into trying to look at them in different positions in your reading, which we're going to do a lot more work on that, because I think everybody, including myself, can never have too much practice with that kind of a thing. So, but anyway, let me know what you think, and thank you for watching. As always, I'm Rebecca, and I wish you blessings.